Welcome to People First Builders, celebrating leaders in construction who build success through their people. My name is Fletcher Wimbush, your host. I'm the CEO of Discover.ai, a performance hiring software helping small and mid-sized AEC companies solve their hardest problem, people. We help people first leaders install and execute repeatable talent acquisition systems that drive business results by hiring top performers, lowering turnover, and building world-class company cultures. Stick around to the end and you can learn more about how to become a guest on our podcast and share your story with the world. Welcome to the People First Builders podcast. I'm excited to have Ryan Englin here. Ryan, I think, is one of the smartest guys when it comes to blue collar hiring. I am like totally in awe with you, dude. Like from the day I met you and we started talking about like, how do you go about building this kind of repeatable system of profitable hires or high quality hires? I mean, like you get it, man. And you have a slew of case studies and just leave a trail of happy, clients and that you've taught and implemented amazing things for. So I'm really happy to have you here. How did you end up in the talent acquisition space, man?
I think it's like most people, when they get to a point in their career, they're like, how'd you get here? I was like, I kind of fell into it. Yeah. I was almost forced into it, actually. I started a marketing company to serve home service contractors. It was the world I grew up in. And after a couple of years, they didn't need leads. They didn't need emails. They had empty trucks and they needed people. And they were canceling marketing services left and right. And I was like, I got to do something. So like this act of desperation, I started calling them like, what's wrong? And they're like, I got empty trucks. Do you know anybody that can help me find techs? And I'm like, I'll do it. I have no idea. I'll do it.
Yeah.
For me, recruiting's always been a marketing activity.
Yeah.
I was a marketer. So let's see if we can do it. And I had an HVAC contractor in July, which is one of the hardest times to find HVAC techs. Yeah. And we filled 4 trucks in 3 weeks.
Nice. Yeah. And that's like a minor miracle too, by the way.
Here's the thing. I think that in the blue collar space, no one's ever taught them this stuff.
Yeah.
They've relied on staffing agencies and they've done their best and they've, school of hard knocks it. And there are so many opportunities out there if they would just take the time to learn it, but it's not what they do. Yeah. They build stuff.
Well, does anybody taught how to recruit and hire or, even interview candidates or make how to make data science based or, statistically valid hiring decisions? Like they teach that in business school. I've never met anybody.
They don't, but there's their ideal team player, right? Like talks about culture fit. There's a bunch of books on foosball tables and PlayStations and nap pods, right? Like that's important stuff.
Yeah.
But none of this stuff translates into blue collar.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the challenge.
Well, yeah. So there's no formal training, but there are people out there talking about it, and you can see it on LinkedIn. And there's some, popular books and things that you can read, and you should. I think as you go along this journey. So. Other than that, I mean, it's something that you really got to seek out and find somebody like a guy like you, I don't know too many guys like you, Ryan. I mean, there are some of the big names in talent acquisition, but, very few like hiring coaches, I guess. Is that the right way to think about what you do?
Just don't Google it because it's all career coaches that shows up, right? Yeah. Like that's the problem. But no, you're right. I don't know a lot of people that are teaching companies how to do this process.
Yeah.
And that's, I was blessed with the skill of being a teacher. I help people understand these incredibly complex situations and how do we break them down into smaller things. And I mean, my book is a great book for anybody that wants to read it about this process. But I think that there aren't a lot of people that are teaching it. And I think because in the recruiting space, teaching companies how to do this puts recruiters out of jobs.
Yeah.
Which isn't true, but that's what they think.
Yeah.
And then because it's not just about the system or what you do, like recruiting is hard work. It takes a lot of time. And that's one of the things we look to do is really shorten the amount of time people are spending doing it.
Yeah. I don't like recruiters. And I imagine you probably feel somewhat the same way as me on that, but can we just go on a little tirade about how crappy staffing agencies and recruiters are? Like, I mean, I don't know that any business owner that I ever talked to love paying big fees.
Well, I know exactly why they all suck.
Yeah. Why?
Because they fill a job rec.
Yeah.
They don't find the ideal person for the company.
And why is that though? There's a reason. I think there's a reason why that happens.
Because they have to spend time getting to know the company.
Yeah.
And when they go into a company that's like, oh, I don't know, now they have to figure out how to help the company develop that, which is one of the first things we do at Core Matters.
Yeah.
If you do not have an employer brand, if you're not clear on who you are and how you behave and what's the expectation of your people, and you don't have that codified somewhere, and you can't explain it quickly, those staffing agencies are like, here's some with a resume that fits the job description you gave me.
Yeah, the job description sometimes aren't even accurate, right?
I look at job descriptions like resumes. There's 3 types of them. There's those written by professionals. You can't believe anything that's in those, right? They're all embellished and everything else. There's rows written by people that don't know how to write them, which is pretty much everybody.
That's just like a bullet list of demands.
Yeah. And then there's the new one, that written by ChatGPT.
Yeah. Well, they're actually pretty good.
They're pretty good, but you still can't believe it because is it authentic?
Yeah. Well,
ChatGPT doesn't know that company either.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always find that, there are like 2, maybe 3 or 4 things on a job description that really matter. Right. Yeah. So, most job descriptions have like 20, maybe I'm exaggerating, 10, whatever. Bullet points. Yeah. Or more. I just looked at one yesterday, by the way, and it was, atrocious in terms of the number of bullet points and demands. But, at the end of the day, they really just needed a cost accountant or, a high level controller who could get their cost accounting under control and the data. And like, that's the focal point. All the other stuff. Yeah, it's important. It's there, but man, that is what was broken, the problem that needed to be solved. So let's get clearer about that. So I just want to make one more point, and then I want you to share a little bit of your process. So if I am a staffing agency, I'm a recruiter, and you're not going to pay me anything. Right? You ask me to do my job for free. So am I going to get in and help you rewrite your job description? Am I going to help you extract your employer value proposition, really get to know you and your culture and your organization, and then go spend months finding that really needle in the haystack? And I would say that when it comes to those highly specialized roles like engineers or a VP or something like that, or am I going to, grind it out trying to, get these HVAC techs, which are hard to get engaged? Am I going to am I going to tell you, what, this candidate's actually not good now that I've gotten to know them?
Yeah.
If I am just trying to get you to buy someone so I can eventually get paid. Do I have any incentive? Like, the incentive structure's screwed up here, don't you think?
Oh yeah. So, I have people ask me all the time. They're like, "So, what's the contingency fee?" And I was like, "For what?" They're like, "Well, if I hire 5 techs using your program, like, do I just pay you per tech?" I'm like, no, because you're not paying me for the technician. You're paying me for the process.
Yeah.
To get you as many technicians as you want.
Yeah.
Like you can, if you want to eat tonight, you can either learn to fish or you can pay someone to DoorDash the fish.
Yeah.
But one of them gets very expensive and you have very little control over it. Because once it shows up at your door, like you're either eating or you're starving, your choice.
Yeah.
And most people are like, I'm hungry, bring it in. It's the same thing they do with employees from staffing agencies and recruiters. Are like, it's about time, I'll just take them. And then they're mad because the recruiter didn't do their job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, we could go on and on.
Yeah.
About
Okay. Well, but I think it's an important premise to like what you do, right? I mean, like relying on third parties whose interests are really not aligned well with the end result of a high quality hire is a big problem. And it's so systemic, right? Like, every leader or company I've ever met is probably used a staffing or recruiting agent at one point. And probably the vast majority of them had a pretty bad experience at one point as well. And that's really a shame that the industry has, continues to operate like that. And they aren't operating like you, in my opinion, where you're this trusted advisor. And I've met a few really smart people out there, and they like Alex Hermosi. Have you seen any of his content?
Oh, who hasn't?
Yeah. So I'm listening to his book, and he's like, what I do is I bring in consultants to help me like get my systems and processes in place until they teach me, till I can then like So they teach me how to fish and they help me along and they're coaching me along till I'm able to then do it myself. And long term, that's how he gets from, like learning how to do something to really good at it and then taking it over internally. And I feel like that's kind of like what you do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we talked about this. There's no one out there teaching this stuff. And so there's little bits and pieces. There's like, we use a lot of fishing analogies. Like, hey, there's bait. Like, here's the bait section. Like, there's a book that'll talk to you about the different types of bait, the pay, the benefits, the PTO, all that stuff. But they don't teach you how to communicate it. They don't teach you how to structure it into a package that your market wants. They don't teach you any of that stuff.
Yeah.
They just tell you, here's the bait. And so with our process, we're looking at everything holistically. And the ultimate goal is to make your company be an employer of choice. And what I mean by that is people are lining up to work there, even when you're not hiring.
Yeah.
And
that gives you the option to really vet those people to determine, if you got 10 people waiting to come work for you, now you get to be very selective. And do you teach people how to figure out which one of those 10 to hire to top it off?
Oh yeah. So once we've got that applicant flow or those people coming in, not only are we going to talk about things that like you guys are amazing at, which is the pre-hire assessments.
Yeah.
Not only talk about that, how you can shorten the cycle it takes to learn about somebody. That's the beauty of pre-hire assessments. So we help them with that, but then we get really dive deep into a structured interview process so that we're interviewing everybody the same way. So we can line up the results of their interviews and compare them and be like, who's the right ones for us?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so much of the interview process is broken in that we're used to asking the same boring questions that they've heard 100 times, that every candidate on the planet has memorized the perfect answer for.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of that, I like people to think, how do we actually get to see them behave? Like, let's put them into a process.
Yeah.
Let's put them in the shop and ask them to fix something.
Yeah.
Let's have them show up on time.
If they show up late to the interview, you're screwed. I'm telling you. I know that one for sure.
You know what, though? In the people we work with, you can be 2 days late to the interview and they'll still hire you.
Yeah. They're that so desperate. And their
so
process is
desperate.
so broken. And they're so, yeah, exactly. No, yeah. Please don't do that, guys. So step one, I'm a HVAC company, or I'm a electrical contractor, I'm a plumber, I'm a pest control company. I don't know, any of these.
We do a lot in construction too.
Yeah, a lot of construction. So you got all these trades, concrete, you name it, right? So you pick your sector, right?
Yeah.
Step one, I'm struggling here. You're going to do what for me? Where do we begin this process?
Yeah, the first step is we have to, what we like to say, stop the bleeding.
Okay.
Like, people come to me because they are way past due for whatever they need.
Okay.
People are leaving like crazy. They're not finding enough people. They're not hiring good people. Like, whatever it is, we got to fix that.
Okay. So I've got high turnover probably, and you were running some numbers the other day, and like the trades, for example. I mean, what are you talking the average turnover in a company? If you have 100 people, 100 electricians, 100 plumbers, 100 carpenters. I mean, what do you typically expect turnover?
I'd like to see turnover in the 15-20% range. That's my goal. Most of these companies are 40 to 60%.
Yeah.
So you've got 100 technicians in the field. 40 of them will not be there in 12 months.
Yeah. That's crazy to think about, right? So instead of the percentage, think about the number of people, 40. And if you're in this situation, right, how painful that is, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm losing 40 people. What does that cause me to do?
Well, I mean, I think you get desperate and you're just like, I've got customers to serve. I've got crews to build. Like, I'll take whatever I can get.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's where the desperation comes in.
So you stop that bleeding. This step one is like, okay, wait a second. We just need to stop this vicious cycle.
We have to stabilize you, because if we don't, you're going to crash and then we got nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Okay. What, any, top couple of things you do to stabilize that situation?
We look at three different areas. We look at, the first one is, are we getting enough people coming into the pipeline? Yeah. Are we attracting enough people?
Yeah.
If we're not attracting enough people, we got to solve that.
Okay. So
now,
let's fill our funnel bigger. Hopefully, if I'm choosing the best of the worst, then we need to increase the size of the pool.
That coming in. The next one is, and people don't like this one, but is the culture toxic? And there's varying levels of toxic, but we're looking at leadership and we're surveying the employees to say, tell us about leadership.
Okay. So you actually like have a survey, or you customize a survey?
Yeah, we have a short pulse survey that we send out. We have them send out to their employees, and then we collect the information. And then the third one we look at is performance expectations. So sometimes the reason that we're struggling is because we're firing people, or we are letting people get away with being poor performers, and no one's managing the performance piece, which means they don't have clarity on what's expected of them.
Yeah.
So those are the three key areas where we see people bleeding.
Okay.
And hopefully you're only bleeding in one, but we come in and we solve that first.
Sometimes they're bleeding in all three, I would imagine. They're kind of connected, right?
They are.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, yeah. I mean, a short, funny story. I had an accountant. They hired another accountant to work in a team of accountants, and the one of the lower level person was like, "Don't hire that person." And so they hired him anyways because the person was probably probably a pretty good hire actually. Mm-hmm. And then like a month and a half later, that person quits. It was like, I don't want to work here. And come to find out that the person who said A, don't hire that person, and B was like that person's like the person they work with the most, was actually a toxic employee. It's like somebody they've been struggling with and they've just been hanging on to because they were afraid to let her go because too much work and we're afraid to let her go. So do you really get people to like, rip the Band-Aid off and let Jane toxic employee go?
Yeah. So the question I always ask if someone's like, that person needs to go, my first question is, will they be surprised when you fire them?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, you have work to do as a leader. You can't surprise them. I actually had a client one time who was like, hell yeah. And I was like, no. This is not a proud dad moment. No. And so we'll actually work with them to set proper expectations, maybe put them on a PIP and talk through like, here's what it's going to take for you to continue your job. I mean, I'd say 80% of the time that person quits.
Yeah.
Once they start getting managed like that.
Yeah.
But that solves the problem. And I've never had an employer tell me, gee, we fired that person too soon.
Yeah.
Never had that happen. It's always been like, why didn't we do this 2 years ago?
Every business coach I've ever met is like, fire them sooner rather than later.
Hire slow, fire fast. I believe it.
Exactly. But anyways, we all know there's real reasons why it's difficult to do. It's emotional. It's all sorts of challenges. Okay. So you hopefully build a better funnel. We identify culture and ways to begin to improve those. We start to manage out, hopefully, the toxic people that might be causing a problem for us. And then we set clear expectations so that our underperformers have a chance to meet them, hopefully, or find their way out. And that the hype, or that we're not firing people because they're misaligned or we haven't really told them what to do because maybe they could have been good,
Yeah.
Okay. So if we start to make a dent here and we're, through increased better marketing and bringing more funnel, we're staying afloat. What happens next once we sort of kind of triage the bleeding, we solve that problem, so, now next level?
Yeah, once we've stabilized, what I've found is I can't focus on the marketing until I've fixed the actual internals of the organization. So if I go out there and promote, this is the most incredible place to work for, and all these candidates show up and it's a toxic disaster, can't have that. Mm-hmm. So the next step is to focus on becoming an employer of choice. Okay. And there's a lot that goes into the employer of choice, but basically what it is people want to work there, they want to stay there, and people want to join your team. Like that's really what we're looking for. How do you become someone that in your local area, people are like, I know you're not hiring, but as soon as there's an opening, let me know. So
how long does it take, typically to get from like, this is kind of a whirlwind, scary place possibly to work, to like, okay, now the people inside are saying, I love it here. I don't want to work anywhere else. I want to tell everybody else I know about this place. How long do you think that typically takes?
Yeah, I mean, most of the clients that we've seen see this through, it's probably a 2 or 3 year process to really get there. but we're not staying in this phase for that long.
Yeah.
We're just setting up some of the foundational stuff, but then they have to continue doing it because human nature is skepticism.
Yeah.
My boss is talking to me now and tells me he cares, but he's never done that in 6 years. I'm nervous.
Yeah.
What's going on?
But I would imagine for companies who actually sort of like take this seriously and they put in the work, right? They must see the needle move, relatively short period of time, but is that 90 days?
3 to 6 months.
Yeah, 3 to 6 months. They start to see a noticeable difference. Those pulse surveys start to get better. The sentiment, the general feel and vibe starts to probably feel a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, like in the stop the bleeding phase, we don't want people bleeding more than 90 days. Like that's our internal process. Some people they go do stupid stuff. Right? They keep bleeding longer, but is 90 days. And we do a pulse survey at the beginning and a pulse survey at the end. And right there, we can see difference.
Yeah. Okay.
Just once we stop the bleeding.
So your goal is 90 days to be on the right track and see some measurable improvement. And then now we're a place where people want to, work and there starts to get some buzz here. So what kind of happens next, or what do you do in that?
Yeah. So once we've established more of that culture, that employer brand, and we've solidified that, now we focus next on getting all the right people in the right seats. And we hear that a lot. That's a thing that Jim Collins made famous. Yeah. But what happened is most people look at right people as right seats and they say leadership. And that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the shoulders on which your organization is built. Okay. Getting the right people in the frontline positions so that they can take care of delivering to your customer every time. Because often we hire people and we're like, yeah, Johnny over there, like he's an okay worker. And it's like, you know what? If you would just pivot Johnny from working with his hands to working with his mind, all of a sudden, magic happens.
Wow. Yeah.
But we often just say, well, he can't work with his hands, so he's gone.
He's a bad plumber. I mean, he's a mediocre plumber, but put him in a project coordinator role, and all of a sudden, maybe
or a service manager role, and he crushes it.
Yeah. Okay.
So what we're doing now is we're assessing the people, we're establishing benchmarks for every position inside the organization, and we're lining them up. Right.
And if you're like an EOS person or something, like all of this kind of fits right into that, EOS, scaling up, any one of these business models, right? This starts.
Yeah, we work with a lot of EOS clients, and I've had many of them say we are like the people component on steroids. Yeah. Like it's just such a deep dive into the people component.
Yeah. Yeah. And if anybody's worked with a coach, probably know that your coaches generally have some great guidance in these areas, but their bandwidth and their ability to go deep in these areas usually is kind of limited, I think, right? So it's great to bring in a guy like you who can really focus on that area hands-on, tangibly, and I love that. So what happens next?
So once we're done with that, now we start optimizing operations. So we've got the right people in the right seats, and now we're starting to look at them and saying, do we have the right metrics in place? Do we have the right scorecards? Do we have the right processes for our people? I mean, we work with some clients. I just got off a call with one today, and she's like, well, first the call comes in and then it goes here and then it goes here and then sometimes it goes here. And I was like, hold on. Are you confused? She's like, yeah, I'm confused. I go, guess what? Your people are confused then. If you're confused, your people are confused. And so optimizing operations, think a little bit of like lean methodology, right? How do we make sure that we're taking the right piece to the right person in the shortest amount of time?
Yeah.
That's how I describe lean. And that's when we got to start looking at our business. But so often we grew our business organically. We just figured it out.
Yeah.
We've done it that way forever. So that's the way we continue to do it.
It's just a series of spreadsheets piled on top of each other. And we haven't gone around to streamlining.
Sometimes optimizing operations, bringing in the right software.
Yeah.
Maybe it's bringing in the right people leader. Maybe it's bringing in someone to engineer some processes for you to really start looking at that. And we do a lot of that work. But when you have the right people in the right seats, something incredible happens. They're able to tell you what processes work and which ones don't, and they actually can help you build this whole thing.
Yeah, and they're excited about it probody too, right?
Yeah. Which leads me to the next step. So once we've optimized operations, we get everybody excited about the future. Like hopefully this bus is going somewhere, right? The Jim Collins bus. It could be driving around in circles, like look, kids, there's Big Ben, right? But we want them to get excited about where we're going. And so we start looking at vision casting, and we start looking at career pathing, and we start looking at personal development, professional development. What kind of goals can we set for our people?
Wow.
And then that keeps them long term.
And that's where, that's like you stop the bleeding. Yes. 3 to 9 months, things are starting to get better. The buzz is getting better. Now we start to go and like improving our system and process, which makes my life nicer as somebody who works there. And I also might get to do more of the work that I like to do versus the stuff I'm maybe not as good at, or I don't enjoy. The right seats, right place, right? Mm-hmm. And then you get to this next kind of like later in this process, you get to this really exciting visionary process where, and I would imagine, like you talk about EOS, right? And working on your business, not in your business, you start to see some of that occur, I would imagine, in that later stage where you're like, hey, we're talking about vision, we're talking about optimization. That's a pretty exciting place to be, I would think.
Yeah. Well, and we're not done. Right.
Okay.
So there we get them excited about the future. We get them excited about staying with us. See, what I learned a long time ago is that if I invest in you as a human and I invest in your personal goals, you'll help me achieve my business goals every time.
Yeah.
But if I expect you to invest in my business goals with no reciprocity in your personal life, you're going to go find someone that will.
I often ask people on my team is like, where do you want to be in? And it's not a cliche question. I take it serious. Where do you want to be in 5-10 years personally? Like, what is your vision? Where are you trying to go? How can I help you get there? I want to have a house. I want to have a kid. I want a family. I want, whatever it is.
Yeah, I love what you just said, because that's the answer to the question that you want.
Yeah.
Because if you just pencil whip that,
then
they're going to be like, oh, I want to be here. No, that's not what I'm asking. Like, tell me about your personal life.
Yeah.
Want to be driving a Corvette. Great. Let's help you figure that out.
I did that exercise during my first divorce, and a marriage counselor in counseling, and he sent us home and he had us do this task. And that 10-year vision I set for myself is my guiding light in everything I do in life to this day. And I've accomplished many of the things that I set out for many years ago. 2 beautiful children. I live on the beach. I mean, I'm involved in my communities. These are all things that were important, like to me personally, right? And then everything I do at work, right, aligns with that. Like create space for those things to happen the way I want them to happen, right? And there's a few other things on my list I won't bore you with, but it was really important to me. But that was a life-changing epiphany for me. And I look back and I still, it's exactly the same. And I'm surprised at what I've accomplished and how happy I am. Okay. So you help the people really identify what's important to them personally. And then you start to help them accomplish that through this kind of career growth planning, which again, what I do for work allows me to have the life I want personally. Right.
Yeah. Yep. And then at that point, you've hit what we call the pinnacle, which most people want, is they want that bench of top talent.
Yeah.
Those people showing up saying, boss, tell me when I can go in and play. And that's what we're looking at in our next phase is how do we create the marketing and the passive recruiting efforts and that grassroots efforts and the results that bring in people even when we're not looking for them.
Yeah.
And once you've done that, then at that point, you and your team can scale your business confidently, which is the big thing. Everybody wants to scale, but they're so scared to do it because they're like, I don't know if I can get enough business, or I don't know if I can get enough people, or I don't know if I can get enough cash. Well,
what happens when this breaks or that breaks, or I'm scared that I'm going to have to go in and carry the shoulders.
But when you get the right people, it makes all that stuff so much easier.
Well, and I'd say a lot of these people that should be listening to this, again, you're a contractor, you're in the trades, we all know that you're old. Sorry. You're all thinking about, I'm just going to call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my great clients is 71, 81, 65, 56. I mean, this is the age of the CEOs that I deal with day in and day out. Right. And all of them are trying to figure out what their exit strategy is. So I hang out with some private equity guys, as they like to drink, and they go to nice bars and have good cocktails. No, but we hang out, and every single one of them basically says your business is worth exponentially more if I can remove you as the leader, and nothing will break.
Yep.
So that sounds kind of like the pinnacle to me.
That's what we're building here.
Yeah. Or you're so wildly profitable that you're like, oh, I'm just happy doing this job, and I'll just keep going
what I tell
die.
people is build a business to sell.
Yeah.
And by the time you get there, you just may want to keep it.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. That's the whole idea.
Yeah.
Okay. This is great. We're out of time, but how do we get in touch with you? And is there anything you want to share with the audience?
Absolutely. So corematters.com is my website. You can look me up on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. But if anybody wants to get a copy of my book, if you go to corematters.com/free book, little shipping and handling fee, and I will autograph and mail you a copy of my book, Hire Better People Faster. Deep dive into this whole thing for you.
Okay. So if you're listening to this, I'll put the link to all that in the show notes or on the page, wherever you're listening to, whether it be YouTube, Apple, you name it. We'll be there. And Ryan, it was a great pleasure chatting with you. I loved how you just broke that down for us. And I think that's something we all, businesses, any business that you're in, you can be aspirational. But I love what you've done here in this space. And I look forward to catching up with you soon.
Thanks, Fletcher.
Thank you so much for listening to our People First Builders podcast. If you're a successful construction CEO and would like to tell your story on this program, please visit our podcast homepage, FletcherWimbush.com/peoplefirstbuilders, or check it out in the notes below. If you got something out of this interview and would like to share the episode on socials, we always appreciate that. Just take a quick screenshot with your phone, text it to a friend, or post it to the socials. If you know someone who might be a great guest, tag them on social and let them know. And don't forget, #PeopleFirstBuilders. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We're regularly putting out new content. To make sure that you don't miss out on any episodes, go ahead and hit subscribe on your favorite podcast channel. Your thumbs up and ratings and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our website, FletcherWimbush.com, or follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.